everyone. Thank you all for joining. Welcome to Rhythm Lightning Talks. I'm your host, Parag Katkar. I'm the head of consulting practice at Rhythm, and we have several awesome lightning talks lined up for you in the upcoming weeks. Our lightning talks are hosted every Thursday at 5:15 p.m. Eastern Time. And each week, one of our practice area consultants shares their knowledge on the evolving technology trends in the industry that will help you learning and growing in your career. So this week, Josh Buchanan, who is an awesome senior iOS engineer with Rhythm, is going to give an overview of SwiftUI Animation. SwiftUI brings a ton of new features and an easier way of writing UI code to all of Apple's platforms. And as an added bonus, it also has a new way of animating state transitions. So I'm really excited to understand it more from Josh. So without further ado, let's get it started, Josh.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so my name is Joshua Buchanan. I'm an iOS engineer for Rhythm. I have done various SwiftUI animation situations in the past. So we're going to talk about a couple of different ways in which you use the animation in SwiftUI, why you'd want to use animation, as well as a couple of examples that are kind of built off of scenarios I've had in the past. So the first question is, why put animation inside of your application? A big thing is it helps your user understand the flow through the application. And so, as you're moving from view to view, transitions can help the user understand, moving like pages through a book, or moving from the top of a view to a lower part of a view, or drilling into some additional content. Particularly with SwiftUI, where the views are so state dependent, animations can help indicate to the user that something on the view has changed. It also adds a level of professionalism to the application. iOS and SwiftUI out of the box have a good look and feel, but it's a pretty generic look and feel. And so you can, really set the stage for your users by adding just a little bit of animation in just the right place. And lastly, it just makes the applications more fun to use. I prefer an application that is a pleasant experience instead of just a good experience. So today, what we're going to talk about is a couple of the different options you have when doing an animation on a view in SwiftUI. A couple different ways in how to add those animations, and then, like I said, a couple of examples of scenarios I've used animations in the past. So animations on SwiftUI have a whole bunch of options. Today, we're just going to talk about a handful of them, show a couple of examples of a handful of them. You can repeat an animation some number of times, or tell it to repeat until you change some state on the view. You can control the speed of the animation, which the way that animation happens in SwiftUI, you definitely want to have the right speed for the right kind of animation that you're showing the user, as well as curve options. And we'll look at a couple of different curve options as we go through the examples, but those are used to, do you want something to rush onto the screen and then land kind of softly? Do you want it to stay the same speed throughout? Or do you want it to start slow and then really, land hard? So those are a couple of the options that you have as far as configuring the animation themselves. We're going to jump into a quick basic animation, show you some of the pieces that you can have controlled by the animation. When you're adding an animation, there's a handful of different ways that you can do it. The two that I use most often are associating it to a button, or in a button type scenario where you've tapped on something and we're going to trigger a state change. When that state changes, whatever state's changing, we want that state to be animated. The other one is we want the animation to start when the view appears, and then depending on the scenario, either run once or twice and then turn off, or repeat until we change some state on the view. So ways in which you can animate a view or some object on a view is you can tell it to start animating or stop animating. You can change the location of some item on your view using the offset. You can change the color of the thing that you're animating, as well as you can change the scale. So we'll go ahead and just jump into some code real quick. What I've got here is a shape that is changing state. And right now, there's not any kind of animation being applied to it. And you can see there's a very abrupt look when we change from one state to the other. You can see circle, rounded rect. It's almost aggressive in how abrupt it is. And we can really soften that up by just adding some animation to this shape change. So what you're going to see is, now we trigger the state change. Oops. Sorry about that. You can see as we trigger the state change, it's a nice smooth transition from one state to the other. This is nice and it's pretty, but we can take it to a whole other level. So what we're going to add is we're going to change the scale of the shape as well as the color of the shape. Just kind of show you, with just a few lines of code, you can really take animations to the next level. So you can see here, we've now got a red circle that's going to transition into a green rounded rect. While it's transitioning, you're also seeing a change of the size, right? And depending on what you're trying to communicate to the user, say for example, big red circle is, hey, we want to get your attention, and then you've acknowledged that whatever it was that was getting your attention. All right, we're going to calm down. We're going to green lights, right? Everything's good. And in this particular situation, the way we're controlling the animation is just with this state variable here for open. And so as I mentioned before, we're toggling the state of the open variable here. Oh, sorry, my hand's right in the screen. We're toggling the state of that. By wrapping it inside of this with animation, we're able to say everything that's impacted by this toggle, we want that to animate. And so in this particular case, we've got the fill. If it's open, we have the the color is green, otherwise red. Same with the scale. It's half or 150% or 100%. And this is nice, but we can do a little bit better. So we'll go ahead and we're going to play with the offset here just a little bit. And you can see, I'm just going to apologize for that. You can see we're keeping the scale and the color change, but we're also going to change the location of the thing that's being animated on the screen. So you can see, not only are we changing and animating the shape, but we're changing its location on the screen. So in this case, again, if you envision, big red, hey, warning, I need your attention, and then, hey, you've acknowledged it. All right, everything's calmed down. It's coming back down. Everything, green lights, all good. So that's just some of the basic animation parts, components that you can apply. I'm going to go ahead and get that started, and then I'm going to jump back over here. So in the past, we've all used, 100 apps that have a login, and, they look nice and professional, but they all look the same. And, if you really want to get your users' attention and say, hey, you know what, we're just a little bit better than the other folks, you can add some animation to your login screen and really take things to the next level. So in this example, I'm going to show you the repeat option that you have on the on your animation, how auto reverse works, an example of when you would and wouldn't want to do it, as well as utilizing screen offset to control when things are coming on and off the screen. So now, if you look over here, you'll see this is a standard login landing page, just like you've seen 100 times. And it's fine, it gets the job done, but we can make it just a little bit better. So what we're going to do is we're going to add just a little bit of a bounce to our InRhythm logo. And I want this to go over and over and over again for the length of time that logo is on the screen. And as a result, I'm going to trigger this animation from inside of my on appear of this view. So you can see now, and hopefully it translates well over the video, but you can see we're just slowly shifting the InRhythm up and down just a little bit. And the way we're doing that is utilizing that same offset that we talked about a few minutes ago, and just say, move your offset, from 0 to 20 in this case, and just keep doing so while this is on the screen. This particular animation is taking advantage of both the repeat forever, meaning just keep happening until I tell you to stop, as well as it auto reverses as part of the configuration. Depending on the animation that you're doing, you may want to use auto reverse, but you may not want to use auto reverse. And in this particular case, auto reverse is definitely the right choice here. And just to demonstrate the difference, you can see what's going to happen here. So instead of a nice smooth transition back and forth, the animation goes and then it resets back to 0. So instead of transitioning back to 0, it resets back to 0. And you now have created this kind of jarring, kind of distracting animation on your view. And, in this particular case, it's not the right choice. However, you will see in just a moment a situation in which it does make more sense. So we're going to go ahead and keep that InRhythm logo doing its bounce, doing its thing. And we're just going to add a little bit of whimsy to this screen. What we're going to do is we're going to have a train animate across the screen. And this first time, we're just going to have it go some number of times across the screen. And initially, we just want it to keep going. So we'll go ahead. We're going to uncomment a little bit of this. Just to give you a little bit of an example of this. Now, you'll see that in this particular case, we've left the auto reverse in place. And with an animation like this, the moving back and forth on the screen gives you the feeling like something's happening, but it's not quite finished yet. So this is almost like a loading type feel because of the way that the auto reverse is happening. If you contrast that with a one-way animation, you're going to see it gives it more of a forward feeling experience, letting the user know, hey, we're ready for you. Go ahead and log in. Now, this is utilizing the repeat forever. So in this case, until the user interacts and moves away from this view, this is just going to keep happening. There are situations in which, you say, we want the user to see this. It's kind of whimsy, but we only want them to see it the one time. So you can take advantage of the repeat count configuration for the animation. And in this case, we're going to tell it to repeat twice. And the reason for that is we've also got the auto reverse enabled on this. So what you're going to see is the train is going to go across the screen and then it's going to come back. And when you're talking about the repeat count with auto reverse, you have to keep in mind that the initial animation counts as 1 and then the repeat counts as 2. So in this particular case, what we're going to see is the train's going to animate off the screen and then it's going to animate back and then we're done. So if you have a situation in which you want the animation to repeat but end in a kind of a finished state instead of at the beginning state, you want to make sure that you use an odd number here instead of an even number. So you can see here, this is the same idea, but we're having it do it 3 times now. So you'll see it 1, 2, and then 3, and then it's going to finish off. So this is, like I said, I've done similar things with login screens in the past, and what kind of animation and what flavor of animation you want really depends on the situation and kind of the application's relationship with the user. Let's see, we're going to jump back here real quick. This is just a breakdown of the stuff that we talked about. So you can see we're using an image instead of text here that we're animating, as well as, again, the repeat and the auto reverse. So this last thing is something that in the past, I had a project in which there was asynchronous data going through the application, and the application could be used offline, but the user needed to know that they were no longer on VPN or they no longer had a data connection, but without it inhibiting the function of the application. And so this popover animation is a rough example. I didn't have time to make it as pretty as I did the original one, but it's a rough idea of how we use that and how I've used that in the past. So in this particular case, we're going to take advantage of 2 separate animations related to the same view, all utilizing the offset function, offset values on the view. So in this first case, we're going to expand something left to right, and then in the second case, we're going to expand something up and then down. So again, what we're doing here is we're combining the functionality of one animation and then a second animation to really drive to the user, here's what's happening with the application. The animation really helps the user understand what the application is doing and what it's trying to communicate. So in this example, excuse me, there's this, and we will do this. Okay, so what you can see is, the user's going along using the application. Oh no, we've just lost our data connection back to our source. You now know, you, the user, hey, Pop, this is here. You need to know what's going on. So you can click, you can click the show button, and you're going to see we're animating out a quick description. Hey, your data connection's offline. In our particular situation, this could fail in one of two ways. You could have your data connection wasn't working, or your data connection was working, but you somehow lost connection to the VPN. And so the description here we utilized, we said, hey, you know what? First state is you've lost data connection entirely, or you've just lost data. Forgive me. You've still have a data connection, but you've lost your VPN connection. Well, so that's fine. What if I want to have more information about it? Well, now you can, hey, I need some more information about this. And, what we utilized this for in the past was, we said, hey, well, step one, here's what you need to do because this is now offline. Step two is, here's some things you can do to troubleshoot the problem. And then step three was we sent them on we navigated to a different part of the application that had kind of a frequently asked questions support document. The nice thing about the way this animation is built is, if we hide this, you're going to see we're going to undo both animations at the same time. So you can see, we're going to collapse the expansion outwards, but we're also going to collapse the expansion down, so that the next time this shows up, it's still this smaller indicator. And when you show it, you're back to that initial state. So really helps the user understand, hey, surprise. Thanks, Siri. Hey, surprise, something's going on that needs your attention. All right, what needs my attention? Oh, here's the thing that's going on. Tell me more. All right, here's everything you need to know. And you know what? I'm done. Go ahead and hide. So in our particular situation, this was a really useful interaction that the users would have. It didn't disrupt the flow of them using the application, but it allowed them to kind of move through the information that was being presented to them, and then move back out of it in a way that helped them make sense of what was going on. So just a couple of bits on how we do this. In this starting state, we have a view that has been shifted off screen, and then we use the animation to take your offsets that have put it off the screen and move it onto the screen. And so you can see here we've got our expanded, which is this case here. Now, do we set our offset to 0? That's going to display this view all the way across the screen. Otherwise, go ahead and take it and kick it, mostly off of the screen. Just this little bit of peekaboo to let the user know something's going on. And so you can see we're just setting this X offset. And in this particular case, with the details, we're not going to change the X offset. We're only going to change the height or the Y offset. So you can see here, the default is 100 for the height. And then when we tap here, hey, guess what? Now you're 300, and we can show you all of this. Now, the other thing here is we implemented a scroll view here, by putting a scroll view here, you could have, some amount of content, but without having it overtake the entire screen. It may make sense depending on the use case, the situation. You may want this entire thing to expand to the bottom of the screen, and that's just a case by case basis. The other thing I'll point out is we're also changing the text that's in the buttons, and you'll notice that also has an animation look to it. So you're not having that jarring popping back and forth when you go from less to more. It's a nice smooth animation. Same here where we go from hide to show. It's a nice smooth change from one state to the other. Let's see. I think that will do it for that example. So just to kind of review what we've talked about, we talked about a couple of different ways that you can add on animations to a view. Some of the options, again, very top level options. There's a whole bunch of ways that you can play with the options, add additional options, reconfigure the options to really take control of those animations. This is just a really basic example. And then, we went through a couple of examples of ways that you could potentially use it in the future. Here's a couple of links. The first one is a nice 20-minute-ish tutorial from Apple on animating your views and handling transitions. There's also the second link is all about manipulating shapes that you have drawn. And then this last one is animating off of gestures. Depending on kind of your use case, those are both really good resources for that. Any questions?